Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down the 2024 Zurich Classic of New Orleans. It is the PGA Tour's only team event on the season. And this is an event that, in my opinion, has a lot of potential, but it ends up being a lot of unrealized potential. I generally like the team format. I think that it's a great change of pace, but I think that with where and how the PGA Tour incorporates this event, it ends up being kind of a lackluster event. With the fact that they let 80 teams into this thing, and it's not the cream of the crop golfers that are, electing to play in it with its spot in the schedule right after a major and an elevated event and right before a PGA championship, you're not getting a very quality field, and it's not creating a great television product because with there being 80 teams playing on Thursday and Friday, it's very, very long rounds. It just does not make for a great watch on Thursday and Friday. So if I were to try to, sit here and play Jay Monahan for a second, I think you could fix this event by moving it to somewhere else in the schedule, or by making this the elevated event and making Harbortown a full field cut event, because I think this event would be really interesting if you made it an elevated event and either made the top 70 guys pair up with each other, or made the top 70 guys from the elevated event field pick somebody outside of the top 70 to partner with. I think that would be two very interesting curveballs that you could get on it. And like I said, I also think you could get a better field for this event if you were to put it at a different point in the schedule. But anyway, enough about how to fix the Zurich Classic. We are here to break down the Zurich Classic. So we're going to take a look at the course itself, as well as all of the teams that are playing in this event, and try to figure out who is going to win this event. Try to figure out how to make your DFS lineups this week and how to fill a betting card for this week at the Zurich Classic. Now, before we dive into that, though, a quick little recap of the RBC Heritage. So if you were here for the RBC Heritage show last week, you probably got some good and not so good advice. Scotty Scheffler ended up winning again. Big surprise, right? He seems to win every week now. But if you were paying attention to what I said when I, had to bet that event, I advised for betting Scheffler and Schauffele top 20, and then to parlay that with whatever top 20, top 10 that you wanted to. And then that way, if Scheffler or Xander wins at poor odds, then you're still able to make money off of it. And that was how I made a lot of profit for betting the RBC Heritage. I did not make a whole lot of outright bets because I think that with that field at that course with no cut, I thought that it was just, asking for a lot of variance and very hard to pick an outright winner. And so, a lot of my betting success for that week came from those top 20 parlays with, Scheffler, Schauffele plus someone else, or Scheffler, Clark plus someone else, Scheffler, Cantlay plus someone else. So, from a DFS perspective, I was actually pretty solid on the week overall, even though I was a little underweight to the field on Scotty Scheffler, but I was able to more so fade the right people and just kind of X the right players out of my player pool. That was a big part of my success last week, and it caused to a lot of my 6 and 7K guys ended up being the right ones. I had a lot of Sepp Straka, I had a lot of Andrew Putnam, I had a lot of Akshay Bhatia, and I had a ton of Wyndham Clark. So even though, I wasn't necessarily all over Scotty Scheffler, which I have been for the last month and a half, I thought the last week was as good of a spot as ever to fade Scotty Scheffler. I was still able to have a pretty profitable week by just virtue of, with it being a short field, narrowing my player pool down even further. And by narrowing your player pool down, especially in certain ranges, it forces you to get on the right guys, which is what I was able to do last week. Now, in terms of Scheffler's dominance, the funniest thing to me has been seeing everybody speculate on when he's going to leave for his kid, because I actually kind of went through this myself. I'm not a PGA Tour golfer, but my wife was pregnant at the start of the last high school football season that I coached this past fall. And so for about a month, I had the car packed, the bags packed, the car seat set up in my car, and ready, phone on the sidelines of a high school football game, so that if my wife did go into labor, I was able to drive to the hospital and be there for the birth of my first daughter, right? But, that was a whole month. She didn't give birth until after the third game of the season. So I went 3 weeks with being prepared to leave at any time and didn't have to leave any of those times. Even when we went on the waiting list at our hospital, it still went another week after that. So, it's funny seeing all these people project oh, Scotty's going to have to leave any minute now to go be with his wife, Meredith. Yeah, but is he though? Because you never really know when babies are going to come out. And right now, he's actually made a nice little spot in the schedule where he is probably not going to play again until the PGA Championship. So if the baby comes this week, next week, or the week after, he's in really good shape to still not miss any meaningful golf and be back for the PGA Championship to see if he can make it back to back majors, which would be really interesting. And we're going to be there to cover the PGA Championship when that week comes. Not obviously on site, but we'll be here doing the podcast. Also, this week, if you are curious, we are going to be having Live Adelaide content, so make sure you're subscribed so you can be there for that. But all right, y'all, enough with the introduction. Let's go ahead and dive into TPC Louisiana. All right, so I did mention during the intro that this is a team event, but I neglected to mention just how it is a team event. So, this event is going to be played at TPC Louisiana, which is in Avondale, Louisiana, which is outside of New Orleans. And with this being a team event, players will be in pairs and they will be playing best ball on Thursday, alternate shot on Friday. There will be a cut. There are 80 teams that are starting this event. They will be cutting the top 33 in ties. Will play the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, and they'll be back to best ball on Saturday and alternate shot on Sunday. Now, best ball is where a lot of the scoring happens for this event because both players will play the hole and the best score will count. Whereas alternate shot, they're going to pretty much, as it sounds, alternate shots. So it's one ball playing the hole for each team. So a lot of the scoring for this event is going to come on those best ball days. Now, this event does lend itself to a high amount of variance, though, because of those best ball days, right? Because what can end up happening is, let's say Xander and Cantlay play a hole and they both birdie hole 1 and then they both par hole 2. Well, their cumulative score is -1, even though they had 2 birdies, right? But yet, let's say, I don't know, like the Cootie brothers, Pearson and Parker, go birdie bogey on hole 1, bogey birdie on hole 2. Well, guess what? Their score for those 2 holes is -2 because they happen to have, two birdies on 2 different holes, whereas they bogeyed both of the holes, right? But it's not cumulative score; it's the best score that counts. So really, that lends itself to a ton of variance. And really, when analyzing these teams, it's going to be not really a week to use statistical models or anything like that. It's going to be a week to really just go off of what you know about what the player's doing right now, what you know about their team history, playing team events, whether it be this event or the Ryder Cup or anything of that nature. And also, just maybe hope to get a little bit lucky as well, because this week is going to be a very high variance week, very difficult to predict week. Now, the course itself is a par 72 in Louisiana. It measures out at about 7,400 yards, and this is a Pete Dye design. Basically, the best way I can describe TPC Louisiana is if like TPC Sawgrass had a baby with a driving range. That would be how I would describe it, because it's got a lot of the kind of wetlands and bunkering of TPC Sawgrass, but it's also incredibly flat, incredibly open off the tee, and incredibly gettable. Believe it or not, this is actually the flattest course on the PGA Tour in terms of elevation differences. You're not going to be seeing a whole lot of undulated shots. You're not going to be seeing a lot of shots into elevated or depressed greens. Like, this is just a very, very flat golf course, which is going to create a lot of flat lies. And so golfers who typically excel at TPC courses are going to excel here at this one. Now, there's also 2 drivable par 4s here at this course, which does lend itself to, on the best ball days, guys who are a little bit longer off the tee can get a little bit more aggressive here at those pins. But it creates a very scoreable environment for an event like this, where there's going to be a lot of scoring already. With it being a team format, there's going to be even more scoring, just because this generally sets up as a pretty easy golf course. Now, in terms of comp courses, I would have TPC Twin Cities, Detroit Golf Club, the Stadium course, host of the American Express, and TPC Sawgrass as my 4 comps. Those are all 4 flat, either Pete Dye designs or TPC designs, just generally easy courses. And so that's what I would kind of look at this week. And so in terms of guys on who to target, I really this week just want to target birdie makers. Like, just give me guys who can make a lot of birdies and make those birdies in bunches, because especially on the best ball days, the birdies are going to be what's counting. So I want guys that are just going to give me as many opportunities to make those birdies. Last year, the winning score got all the way down to -30. So you're going to have to make plenty of birdies to do that. Now, what's interesting is last year, Davis Riley and Nick Hardy did set the record for the best performance on the alternate shot days. They combined for -13 on the alternate shot days and only -17 on the best balls in order to end up with the win at -30, which is pretty darn impressive because those alternate shot days are much more difficult. The year before that, Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay won at -29, and they were -24 on the two best ball days. Just kind of built the lead up on those 2 days and just kind of treaded water on the alternate shot days. Whereas last year they actually came from behind on one of the alternate shot days at the very end and almost ended up winning that tournament on Sunday. Just weren't quite good enough to catch Davis Riley and Nick Hardy. Now, in terms of the team format and who to target this week, like, guys, I mean this in the most sincere way. Don't overthink this week. This week is an event of very high variance. It is an event where it's very difficult to predict. And really, this is not going to be a week to just super stress about who to pick. It's more of like, I just want to pick guys who are going to get birdies, guys whose skill sets complement each other, and guys who either just based off of vibes or based off of, you know, I don't know, their team experience, whether it be Ryder Cup or playing with a guy at this event or playing with a guy in college or whatever. Like, just stuff like that is going to be what I'm going to look at this week more than any. And if anybody on any kind of content you consume this week claims to have it all figured out or to have this event mastered, they don't. That's just a lie. It's a very random event. It's very difficult to predict, and it's very fun to predict. I think from a betting perspective this week, I'm probably not going to place a whole lot of bets in the outright market. I'm probably going to be targeting like the four balls, I guess you could call it, on DraftKings, where you can kind of get the matchups on a day-by-day basis. I'm also going to be making some top 10 and top 20 bets when they come out, but I don't think this is necessarily a week to blow a lot of money trying to pick an outright winner, unless that's just what you want to do, or to play a ton of lineups in DFS, unless that's just what you want to do. But this is an event with very high variance, and it's very difficult to predict, and we're going to do our best to try to predict it, knowing that we're not going to bat 1,000 here for this event. Now, in terms of the key stats for this event, one thing that I did want to share, pretty much we've done the key stats every week, but like I said, this week is not one to go with a statistical model. This one is one to kind of go with your gut and your heart and what the recent form tells you. So really the only key stats I'm looking at are, I want to look at how guys are playing recently in terms of strokes gained off the tee and on approach. And then I want to look at birdie better percentage, because I want the guys who are going to give me plenty of shots to make those birdies that they're going to need to win this event. Now, if I go ahead and scroll on over here to the Rabbit Hole, which is a tool by BetSperts Golf that I have used recently and had a lot of success with it. It is, in my opinion, the best statistical database that is available. And I cannot say that enough, how much I appreciate the guys here at this site and, the tools that they have, because you can just have a ton of filters, right? So I'm not going to get too much in the weeds this week, because especially when you make a custom model, because you're going to be getting it for individual golfers, not for a team. But in terms of recent form, the best guys in the field recently in terms of strokes gained total have been Xander Schauffele, Billy Horschel, Tom Hoge, Sahith Theegala, Keith Mitchell, Maverick McNeely, Doug Gim, Mark Hubbard, Rory McIlroy, and Matt Fitzpatrick. The only team that has both guys in the top 10 is the team of Tom Hoge and Maverick McNeely, which I actually found quite interesting there. Now, if you want to narrow that down to off the tee play, you've got Kevin Yu, Kevin Doherty, Rory McIlroy, Keith Mitchell, Alejandro Tosti, Cameron Champ, Xander Schauffele, Rico Hui, Sahith Theegala, and Maverick McNeely. And then if you switch it on over to approach play, you get Tom Hoge, Keith Mitchell, Shane Lowry, Corey Connors, Nick Taylor, Will Zalatoris, Austin Eckroat, Andrew Novak, Joel Damon, and Mark Hubbard. What is interesting about those two lists, though, when you juxtapose the off the tee and approach lists, you do have a lot of guys who get one of their two guys on the team in each category, right? Like, you have McIlroy off the tee and Lowry on approach. You have Xander Schauffele. No, Schauffele wasn't one of them. My bad. You have Sahith Theegala off the tee. You have Will Zalatoris on approach. You have Andrew Novak on approach. You have no, hold on, that was the wrong one. You have Maverick McNeely off the tee, Tom Hoge on approach. Sorry, y'all. It's really hard to memorize all the teams and have it when you're going forth between two tabs. So anyway, what I'm saying is that you have the chance this week that when you look at those recent form stats to pick guys who are going to have abilities that complement each other in terms of one being really good off the tee and one being really good off approach. That is a skill set that can favor on the alternate shot days, where even though each guy is going to be teeing off 9 times, you can kind of figure figure it out and make a little bit of a plan where you're going to get more par 3 shots, aka approach shots for one guy than the other. Now, also, I do want to look at that metric where we talk about birdie or better. So in this field, in the last 6 months, last 36 rounds, the best players in the field at birdie or better are Kelly Craft, Scott Piercy, Taylor Pendrith, Matt Fitzpatrick, Ted Potter Jr., Rasmus Højgaard, Mark Hubbard, Tom Hoge, Kyle Morikawa, and Thomas Dietrich. Now, there's a few names there that don't really have a whole lot of rounds like Ted Potter Jr. and Kelly Craft. That can be attributed to the fact that they haven't played a whole lot of events. But the fact of the matter is, when they played, they were still able to make a lot of birdies. And like I said, this week is birdies above all else. So now that we have broken down all the stats and all that we need to know about the course, let's take a look at the golfers and see if we can find the golfers who are going to make those birdies this week. All right, so the team at the top of the DraftKings board as well as the betting board should come as no surprise. It is Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, and I got to be honest, that is very rightfully earned. They won this event back in 2022 as a team, and last year they made a pretty hard charge and came in T4. And look, they're just kind of like the class of the field, right? Like they're probably in all objectivity 2 of the 6 best golfers in the field, no matter how you want to stack it up, no matter how harsh you want to be on Cantlay's recent form. And they're on the same team. Like, it's just, this is probably the all-around best team, all-around favorites to win this event. On DraftKings, they are going to be the highest owned team because of where they come in at the top salary. Now, what I do think is encouraging about this team, though, is Patrick Cantlay had been pretty not good to the start of 2024, if I must be honest. But he's rebounded nicely. More importantly, it's been his irons that have rebounded. At the Masters, he had a very, very good tee to green week, gaining almost 5 strokes with his irons on approach. And then at the RBC Heritage, he came in 3rd place, gaining over 5 strokes on approach for the week. So now that Cantlay has found his irons again, I think that really just gives this team, the highest combined ceiling with a high floor already, because they are 2 very well balanced golfers who generally are pretty conservative course managers. So on the best ball days, they're going to be having pars and they're going to be freed up to be aggressive and go make those birdies. So I really do think it is rightfully earned that they are the top team on the board. Like I said, if you're playing DFS, they are going to be the highest owned team, and I think it's for pretty darn good reason. I think that this team brings a safety that no real other team here on the board brings. Now, Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry are next up, and these guys have history playing with each other at the Ryder Cup. What I think is really interesting, though, is from a strokes gain perspective, they kind of really cover each other's weaknesses quite well. Like, they're both elite drivers of the golf ball. McIlroy has been pretty good with the putter recently. It's been his irons and his chipping that have kind of let him down. But Lowry is kind of the opposite, where he's still been an elite driver of the golf ball, but he's been an elite iron player in 2024, really with his putter letting him down. So I think that with this being a pretty familiar pairing, with it being 2 guys whose skill sets kind of marry up nicely right now, I do think that McIlroy and Lowry are sitting there rightfully as the second favorites and the second price team on the DraftKings board. If I'm playing a lot of DraftKings this week, which I will be, these top 3 teams are all going to be teams that I load up on heavily, because the third team of Sahith Theegala and Will Zalatoris, I think, is a great team also. You have Sahith, who, to me, this place reminds me of where he won at in Silverado, where it's not necessarily super wide fairways, but there's not really a penalty for missing them, which is what we like for Sahith. He's a great driver of the golf ball, especially at courses where he doesn't have to worry too much about hazards, and he's been a pretty solid iron player over the last few months as well. The RBC Heritage is a course that on paper he should not set up all that well for, and he was able to finish runner-up with a really good finish on Sunday, to their finish runner-up behind Scotty. So I really do like how Sahith's coming in. Will Zalatoris, we know that he's one of the world's best iron players on the planet, and if he brings that, he's going to be in pretty good shape, and this team's going to have plenty of opportunities to make birdies. Also, just from a vibes perspective, like, this just seems like 2 of the nicest guys on the PGA Tour. Like, they both just seem very polite, easygoing, easy to get along with. Like this should be a very amicable team for the 2 of them. So I do think that those top 3 teams are where I'm going to focus a lot of my efforts in DFS, and I'm going to, when the top 10 and top 20 markets open up, those are going to be 3 teams that I'm going to be looking to kind of parlay off of it with some other teams near the bottom. Now, next up is a few teams that I'm actually a little bit concerned about, in all honesty. Colin Morikawa and Kurt Kitayama, I don't think is the most natural pairing. Kitayama is kind of like this boom or bust guy who you never really know what to expect from him. And Morikawa had kind of been that way before the Masters. He was not playing very well at all. And so I just don't really know what to expect for this team. I also think it's a major red flag that last year, you can look at the leaderboard, Colin Morikawa played this event with Max Homa, who is by all accounts a better golfer than Kurt Kitayama, and they missed the cut by 2 shots. So I think that's a big time red flag that Colin has experience at this event with a better partner, and it didn't end all that well for him. So this is going to be a team that I'm largely going to be fading in DFS. But I will tell you, it's probably going to be a team that a lot of other people are going to be fading in DFS, and I expect them to come at significantly lower ownership than everybody else near the top of the board. Matt Fitzpatrick and Alex Fitzpatrick did play here last year, and they ended up finishing T19. So I don't think that that's a terrible result for them. And I think Alex is actually playing significantly better right now than where he was heading into last year. Like, he's like a legit DP World Tour player right now, whereas last year he was kind of a gimmick to get into this event. And so I do think that that bodes well for the Fitzpatrick bros. Connors and Pendrith is a team that I'm not going to be on, though. Connors, as much as I liked his game at the RBC Heritage, as much as I love his run of approach play, Taylor Pendrith is a guy who can be wild off the tee. You don't really know what you're going to get from Taylor Pendrith, even though he has played well at a lot of those comp courses that I listed off. I just don't really like the inconsistent nature that you're getting. And I would rather opt to go one below them, or really 2 below them to the other 2 teams. I think Tom Hoge and Maverick McNeely are 2 guys whose skill sets complement each other very well. McNeely has been great at driving and putting. Hoge has been great at approach shots. So if they're able to find a way where they can get McNeely a lot of drives and a lot of putts and get Hoge a lot of approach shots, then they're going to be in business. That is going to be a team to be reckoned with if they can find a way to get those 2 skills to be the ones that are at use. And then nobody's really talking about Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin this week. And these guys were only runner-up last year and like very easily could have been in a playoff for this event. If I'm not mistaken, one of them had a putt on the last hole that could have tied Davis Riley and Nick Hardy, and they just didn't. And so I do think that this is a very amicable pairing that, they're both Canadian. If you watched a lot of golf last year, you remember the big embrace from Hadwin and Taylor after Taylor won the RBC Canadian Open. So this is a friendly pairing. These are 2 guys that know each other. And for 2024, they're playing well, and they played this event well before. I think that Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin make a lot of sense this week. The Højgaard brothers, I'm probably cooler on than most. Nikolai had the great Masters where he finished T16, but outside of that, he hasn't finished better than 75th in any of his other past 5 starts, and that's just not good recent form. Rasmus has been up and down on the DP World Tour. The last time he was on the PGA Tour, he missed the cut at the Cognizant Classic and then finished T49 at the Puerto Rico Open, which is almost like a Corn Ferry Tour field. So yes, I know these guys are very talented. I know they're up and coming. I know they can be one of golf's next big things, but I just don't really know if they are there yet. And I think that if you were to play them, and I think a lot of people are going to play them in DFS, it would be because of them being brothers and them having history playing with each other, not because of any sort of signs that they're pointing with their recent form or what they've done, anything this season. And that's going to be a team that I largely end up fading as well. All right, let's take a quick breather and then let's look down the board and see if we can find ourselves some more value plays. All right, so looking below $9,000, the first thing that stands out to me is that you have the team of Billy Horschel and Tyson Alexander, which what's interesting about this is that Billy Horschel is pretty much Mr. Zurich Classic. He finished runner-up at this event twice with Sam Burns as his partner. In fact, he's played this event in the last 4 years with Sam Burns as his partner and never finished worse than 11th. He's also coming off of a win at the Corrales Punta Cana Championship. Anybody fading this team? Oh, and also he won this event back before it was a team event, back when it was solo, back in, I believe, 2013. So anybody fading this team this week is going to be doing so just based off of the fact that he's with Tyson Alexander as opposed to Sam Burns. However, Tyson Alexander is actually coming in with decent recent form. He's made 3 straight cuts coming in at the Houston Open, the Texas Open, and the Corrales Punta Cana Championship. This is a guy who is going to be able to hopefully just tread water and allow Billy to do his thing. But Billy, kind of is the veteran here of the team, is going to be able to give him all the kinds of course advice and tips and everything that he needs in order to be successful. So I really do think that this is a pretty solid pairing at $8,900. And I think that with Billy Horschel's history here, I think that's going to be enough to at least get this team through the cut and hopefully be able to contend on the weekend. Now, if you're looking for a team to pick just based solely off of vibes, Keith Mitchell and Joel Damon is probably the team for you. These two guys seem like they're both just an absolute blast to play with, and they're both playing deceptively good golf coming in. Joel Damon, his best finish in the last few months was T11 at the Players Championship, which was, one of my comp courses for this event, TPC Sawgrass. It's Pete Dye design. It's got a lot of water, a lot of swampy areas like this one has. So I do think that could bode well, pretty well for him. And then Keith Mitchell has just been an elite off the tee player in 2024, excuse me. Two of the last three events, he's finished 17th place or better, and it's largely because of that driver. And these two guys seem like they're absolutely going to be comfortable with each other. Just going based off of vibes, I think that's a pretty solid pairing as well. Taylor Montgomery and Ben Griffin is an interesting combination to me. Both these guys are like putting specialists who can absolutely fill it up on the greens, but somebody's going to have to get them there. And Taylor Montgomery has not been that guy. His last three starts have been missed cuts. However, his fourth most recent start was a T11 at the Players Championship, which is pretty encouraging. Ben Griffin has a pretty interesting stat profile because his finishes have been really solid recently, 4 straight top 40 finishes, but he hasn't really done it with being elite in any one category. He's just kind of had a solid tee to green game, been a little bit worse than neutral with the driver, a little bit better than neutral on approach, but been really solid around the greens and really solid with the putter. So I really do think this team is going to be dependent a lot on Ben Griffin's tee to green game because Montgomery has not been good. But maybe the fact that they're playing with each other, that might free Montgomery up a little bit. And, we know that you're going to have to make birdie putts to win this event. If you're just basing this event solely based off of putting prowess, this would have to be the team that you would have to go with. Now, Beau Hossler and Sam Ryder, I really like as a combination as well. Both these guys played this event last year, but with different partners. Beau Hossler finished third with Wyndham Clark, whereas Sam Ryder finished all the way back in 23rd place. Yes, 23rd place with Doc Redman as his partner. So this is a little bit of an upgrade for Sam Ryder, and he also has finished this event better with Doc Redman as a partner as well. So I definitely like these two as a combination. They're both guys who are really good at driving the golf ball and can really get red hot as well. Like, I think this is a very high ceiling team, and I think in a high variance event like this, I want to go with a team that's going to have a pretty darn high ceiling, and those would be two guys that I would be looking at. Another team that I'll be looking at based off of history at this event is Aaron Ryan, David Lipsky. They were very close to being the first round leader last year, and they ended up finishing in, I believe it was 13th place. But the year before that, they were all the way back in 4th place. So I do think that this is a team that, is pretty comfortable at this event. They're two guys that, are not necessarily great individual players, but they are really good when they team up for whatever reason. They're both coming in off of missed cuts at the Corrales Punta Cana Championship, which should keep their ownership down, should keep their hype train down. But their history at this event is definitely something that is worth looking into and something that's worth targeting, in my opinion. Another combo that I like is sitting at $8,000 even, Garrick Higo and Ryan Fox. Like, this is just a combination that, like, they're going to bomb it off the tee, and they're going to give themselves the best opportunity possible to make birdie from wherever that they're at off the tee. Like I like Garrick Higo at easy courses. I think that courses where there's minimal hazards are where he is kind of allowed to separate himself. And then you can combine that with Ryan Fox, who is also equally long off the tee. I think that these are two guys that should have a chance to play really well here at this event. Garrick Higo played this event all the way back in 2022. Played with Brandon Grace and finished in T4. And I think for where the current state of Brandon Grace's game is at, I think that this is actually a better pairing for Garrick Higo than what he had that year. And so I think that this is going to be a team at $8,000 on DraftKings that I'm definitely going to be targeting here this week. The other one that I'm going to be targeting in the 7K range, I think these guys are going to be pretty popular, but I think it's for very good reason. Taylor Moore and Matthew Neesmith. They've both turned into pretty solid PGA Tour players, and they've both played this event together in the last 2 years and finished T4 both times. And so that's like good enough for me, right? Like all you're really looking for at $7,700 is a made cut, and really because that's going to be top 33. So you get a made cut and you get a chance to play the weekend and get yourself like a top 20, top 15 out of them. Like that's going to be really paying the price tag off. And in an event like this, if you're playing DFS, a 6 for 6 is going to go a long way. So really, because you're going to score so much fantasy points on the weekend because of so many birdies that are going to be made. So I really think that getting a team like this into your lineup, a team that's got great history here at this event, that they've both been really solid on the PGA Tour this season, they're two guys that I definitely want to get into my lineups this week. And I'm going to be playing a lot of Taylor Moore and Matthew Neesmith. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to create kind of an ownership pinch around a lot of the golfers that are priced near them. So, you've got a very high upside Gary Woodland and Lee Hodges pairing. Lee Hodges has a win at one of my comp courses, TPC Twin Cities. You've also got Luke List and Henrik Norlander, who have played this event together before. And in fact, last year they finished T23 here at this event. And, if everybody's going to Moore and Neesmith, nobody's going to be playing either of those two teams. So I think that could be a little bit of an ownership leverage opportunity if you're playing DFS. Another team that I'm very much interested in is Nick Hardy and Davis Riley. They're the defending champs of this event. And you might look at their game logs and be like, Mike, why would you want to pick them? Both of them are playing quite terrible. Yes, that is the case. But that was the case last year when they came into this event. And for whatever reason, something clicked and they rattled off a win. So I really think that combination is really just something about them. They're just really good. Like they won this event and, they deserve to be played in DFS because they were able to, in fact, win this event. And so I'm going to have interest in them as well. Now, another interesting combination is going to be Dylan Wu and Justin Lauer. If I'm not mistaken, they have played this event before. I need to find them here on the leaderboard page, though. But basically, Justin Lauer is coming off of a very solid performance at the Corales Punta Cana Championship. This is a guy who does a lot with his putter, but this is an event where you're going to want a guy who's going to be pretty good with his putter, right? Because you're going to need opportunities to make birdies. Whereas Dylan Wu is kind of like, a better tee to green player than Justin Lauer. I did find them on the leaderboard. They did miss the cut here last year by 1 stroke. So that is not exactly encouraging, but the fact that, you do have a guy in Justin Lauer who's very good with the putter and his tee to green game has been really solid recently, 3 straight top 28 finishes. I think that's definitely a team that warrants consideration as well. Another team that I'm pretty interested in is going to be Nico Echeverria and Max Grazerman. So Nico Echeverria had not been great this season. He had a T15 in Puerto Rico. It followed that up with 3 missed cuts before a T14 at Corales last week. But Max Grazerman has just been really, really consistent. Pretty much the last 2 months, he's been really solid. Top 50 in Cognizant Classic, Puerto Rico Open, Valspar Championship, all the way up to 7th at the Texas Children's Houston Open. Missed the cut at the Valero, but then a T40 at the Corales Punta Cana Championship. This is really good form for a guy like Max Grazerman coming in. And looking at those events that he's played well at, he is able to make birdies. So this is definitely a team that I'm going to have some interest in also. A team that's going to be around them that I think is going to be pretty popular is Alex Smalley and Matty Schmidt. Matty Schmidt has played Pete Dye courses very, very well in his young PGA Tour career. T26 at the Players Championship. Was one of those finishes in a very tough field that is evidence of that. And then Alex Smalley had been pretty terrible this year, but he really bounced back with a T6 at the Corales Punta Cana Championship last week. So the fact that those two are teaming up, I really do think that is something that you can definitely see with these two why they're going to be pretty popular this week. Now heading down from there, really it gets pretty bad in terms of what the bottom of the board here is this week. So just looking at it, Chad Ramey and Martin Tramer finished T9 last year. That's something that's worth noting. Tristan Lawrence and Aldrich Potgieter are the all South African young gun team. Aldrich Potgieter absolutely blasted off the tee. He is a Korn Ferry Tour player right now, though. Tristan Lawrence is a guy who has won multiple times on the DP World Tour. Did not play well at the Corales Punta Cana Championship last year. That, to me, is a team with a lot of upside, but also a lot of risk. I definitely think that I can see merit in playing them, but I definitely don't think there's a whole lot of safety in doing so. When we went over the the strokes gain numbers, Mark Hubbard really stood out as being pretty solid this calendar year, right? Just had a really solid year, has not missed a cut in the calendar year, but he's partnered up with Ryan Brehm, who has not played a whole lot on the PGA Tour this year and has not played well on the PGA Tour this year at all. He's made 3 of his last 8 cuts, which is not great. They played this event together last year, if I'm not mistaken. Mark Hubbard had like a significantly better partner who backed out like the day of, and I believe it was Ryan Brehm that filled in. If it wasn't Ryan Brehm, it was somebody worse than Ryan Brehm. But anyway, I do think that combo ended up missing the cut, but I do think that this Hubbard and Brehm combo is definitely something interesting when you look at the fact that Hubbard's been a great tee to green player, and he's certainly had history playing this event. Update, that was not Mark Hubbard and Ryan Brehm that missed the cut last year. It was Mark Hubbard and Derek Langley who missed the cut last year. Hubbard and Brehm played this event back in 2022 and finished T14. So definitely an encouraging sign there, in my opinion, on the Hubbard and Brehm front. Now, from there, the 6K range is pretty bad. You do have a comfortable pairing in Justin Suh and Rico Hoey, who both play out of Las Vegas. They are apparently like best friends, so they're going to be a comfortable pairing, either though both of them have not really played all that well in 2024 at all. Matt Meisner and Austin Smotherman are like a high upside type of team, but both of these guys are like really just barely better than Korn Ferry Tour players at the moment. So I'm not so sure about them. If you're looking at DraftKings pricing and you see Eric Cole down here, don't get excited, because yes, it is Eric Cole, but he is paired with Russ Cochran, who is like a fringe senior tour player. I believe he is Eric Cole's caddy's dad. And he has not made a cut on the senior tour since June of last year. And he's missed 2 of his last 3 cuts on the senior tour. So definitely not a situation I want to be targeting, because yes, you do get Eric Cole, but on the alternate shot days, he's going to be having to play for where the old man hits the ball, and he doesn't get to tee up to where the old man tees are. It almost begs the question, like, if Scotty Scheffler were to play this event, how bad of a golfer could Scotty Scheffler play this event with and still make the cut? Because personally, if I'm being honest, I'm about a 14 handicap right now, and I think I could play this event with Scotty Scheffler and make the cut, because on the best ball days, we're just taking Scotty Scheffler's score. He's the best player in the world. On the alternate shot days, this is not a super difficult course. I think I could get my drive out there about 220, 240 most of the time, and put Scotty in a position where he can hit the green. I can get all the advice in the world from Scotty if I have to chip or putt. And I think that I would be in okay position to just kind of let us hold water on the alternate shot days, and we can just go with Scotty's score. Anyway, that's beside the point. It isn't Scotty playing with me. It's Eric Cole playing with Russ Cochran, and I think that this is not exactly a great situation where Eric Cole is going to have to carry a lot of the weight for that team. The popular team in the 6K range on DraftKings is going to be the Cootie brothers, Parker and Pearson, just because they're brothers, right? Like, Parker has been pretty good this year on the PGA Tour. You kind of capping it off with a T6 at their Corrales Punta Cana last week. Pearson has not been as good, but he also is coming in off of his best finish of the year, a T18 at the Corrales Punta Cana. So I do think that that's going to be a very popular combo. Just know that if you play them at $6,600, they're going to be the team with all of the ownership here in this range. It's really hard to find a lot of playable teams here in this range. One team that I do think is playable, though, is Kelly Craft and Kevin Tway. So Kelly Craft was a guy that we were playing a lot of near the end of last year, like last fall, like when football was still going on, because he was making pretty much every cut, right? Like before the PGA Tour wrapped it up in the winter, he was making every cut in the fall. And for whatever reason, he didn't bring that to Puerto Rico with him in his first event this year. But if he's able to kind of recapture that form that he had in the fall, he's going to be okay here at this event to play with a guy in Kevin Tway who is coming off of a 3rd place finish at the Corrales Punta Cana Championship. So I do definitely like the fact that these two guys are paired with each other. I think that down there at $6,400, that's not a bad combination. I think that if you're really looking for some bargain plays, I think that Furr and Shelton could be another bargain play. And I think that Brandon Wu and James Nicklaus could be another value play, but you got to be pretty desperate to go all the way down there. And I think that the very bottom of this event is mainly guys that should be on the Korn Ferry Tour. One thing that is interesting that I do think you can look at is just look at the previous leaderboards of this event and see if any names pop up. Charlie Hoffman and Nick Watney, for example, did make the cut here last year, so that might be another combo that you can look out for as well. All right, so that does it for this week. Hopefully was able to give you guys plenty of information that's going to allow you to pick some winners here at the Zurich Classic. And, I know we didn't get to cover all 80 teams here on the board, but yeah, I think we got to cover most of them, got to cover a lot of the teams that I'm going to be interested in from a DFS and from a betting perspective here this week. If you were playing one and done this week, then Lord have mercy on your soul. For playing one and done here this event, you need to make sure whether you are using both golfers or just using one golfer for this event. In which case, if you have to use one golfer for this event, use Alex Fitzpatrick because he's paired with Matt. And any other event where you would want to use Alex Fitzpatrick, he's not going to be paired with Matt Fitzpatrick. All right, so that is pretty much all I got for this episode, guys. One and dones should not be playing this week. That is a hill I will die on. Anyway, that's all we got. If you like what you saw on YouTube, please hit the like button. It really does help me out a ton, and I really do appreciate it. If you're listening on audio, please rate and review. And then if you are listening on audio, you can subscribe as well. But if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel because I'm closing in on 500 subscribers and I really do want to hit that milestone. And I can only do that if people like you do, in fact, hit the subscribe button. So help me out, hit that subscribe button, be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season. And then also we are going to be back later this week for Live Adelaide coverage. So if you're subscribed, you will know when that episode drops as well. All right, that does it for this episode, guys. So hopefully we were able to give you guys plenty of information that's going to allow you to pick some winners for DFS and betting this week for the Zurich Classic. Like I said, it's a very interesting event this week. And so hopefully this change of pace is something that we're able to get a leg up on the competition by all the research and numbers that we're looking at. So best of luck to you guys this week. Thank you guys for watching and listening, and I will see you next time.